Introduction. Setting the scene. This is Henley High School. Henley High School is a local public school of 1,400 students in years 8 to 12, including 75 international students and 25 students with significant learning difficulties in the Supported Learning Centre. The school is situated close to Henley Beach, the airport, and the CBD in Adelaide, South Australia, and provides a comprehensive curriculum that meets the learning needs of a diverse range of students from the local Western Adelaide region. Henley High School is highly regarded for having a broad curriculum for students, the use of ICT tools to enhance the engagement of and successful outcomes for students, the Sports Academy that includes a specialised entry program for high-achieving student athletes in 11 different sports, its focus on student literacy and numeracy, internationalism, vocational learning, and STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and the provision of high-quality teaching and learning for students who are marginalised and have a significant intellectual or physical disability. In 2012, Henley High School made the very controversial decision to scrap the school's library in favour of moving to a virtual library. The decision made headlines across the state. The school's principal at the time, Liz Schneider, was quoted justifying the decision, saying that all Henley High students have laptops and that the students had stopped borrowing from the library. Further reports made the news as other major schools joined Henley in adopting the virtual libraries, citing their reasons being that their libraries were underutilised and that the move made sense. Anthony Van Ryten, Henley's acting principal, defended the school's decision 2 years on, claiming that there were more students reading and borrowing since the virtual library was introduced. The school's choice to move away from printed learning materials was not limited only to the library books. Being a one-to-one laptop school, the choice was also made to move away from printed textbook options in favour for digital versions of student texts. As staff at the time, we were privy to additional justifications, a predominant one being the reduction in weight of student backpacks in accordance with recent health studies claiming a significant increase in the number of students with back issues. Hi. This is me, Tess McGrath. As the former science coordinator at Henley High, I was responsible for managing a team of 28 teaching staff and 1 support officer to try and provide quality science curriculum and pedagogy for a site with almost 1,500 students, as well as developing programs that align with the site improvement plan to improve the scientific literacy of all Year 8 through 12 school students. By 2016, Henley High had been a digital school for 4 years. For us in the science department, that meant that we had transitioned from our hard copy student textbooks, Science World from Macmillan, to the digital version of the same Macmillan text that had been updated to reflect the adoption of the National Australian Curriculum for Science. The text was essentially a PDF version of the previous textbook with a few slight enhancements like interactive links to helpful websites which may have had additional information. The main benefit of these books was the portability for the students. The content could be accessed via the internet to improve student access to the material, even if they did not have their school laptop with them. This was done through a digital licensing and subscription system that the school had purchased at significant cost. The digital license was due to expire at the end of 2016, and as the science coordinator, it was up to me to make the choice regarding the continued use or not of this text. Identify the underlying issue. In order to tackle this issue, I had to consider some important questions. Were the students and staff getting value for money from the current textbook setup? And beyond that, to reflect even more deeply as to what was the purpose of a textbook and what do I want my students to get from it? In answering these questions, the first answer became quite clear. No. The students and staff were not getting enough enhancement to their learning or their teaching to warrant the expenditure. Meaningful technology integration is more of a pedagogic endeavour than a technological one. Lesson observations and student feedback had told me that the digital textbook had not prompted any meaningful pedagogical change in classrooms. It was simply being used as a paper textbook would have been. It seemed that access alone was not enough to bring about a shift towards more innovative practice. To make the use of a digital textbook effective in classroom practice, the learning context of the cohort is incredibly important to consider. In Australia, teacher-centred instruction paradigm, popular in the 19th and 20th centuries, had given way to the learning paradigm that focused on the needs of the student. This adoption of more constructivist pedagogy was influenced and supported by the South Australian Department of Education's release of the Teaching for Effective Learning, or TEFL, Framework Guide in 2010. It emphasised a focus on learning through personalisation and connecting the curriculum to learners' worlds, developing lifelong capacities, and learning how to learn, developing self-efficacy for future life and employment contexts. Our schools are now flooded with students who have only known living in the digital age. Compared to previous generations and the generations of current teachers, these students have been born into a world where technology is ubiquitous. Skiba and Barton, 2006, state that the unique characteristics of these millennial students are challenging the traditional classroom teaching structure, and faculty are realising that traditional classroom teaching is no longer effective with these students. Whichever textbook approach I decided to take, I needed to take all of these factors into account. Students are at the heart of what we do. Our students are digital natives, and when learning is in the hands of the students and not in the hands of the teachers, real learning occurs. As digital natives, students are familiar with using digital devices. They think and process information fundamentally differently from their predecessors. Research has demonstrated that students agree e-textbooks help them learn when they have interactive components like animations, virtual experiments, and activities that aid in learning boring concepts. They need to have good concept organisation and have the capacity to provide constructive feedback. The selected textbook as a resource would need to introduce the concepts and knowledge relevant to the discipline, be motivating, and encourage networking and collaboration with other members of the learning community. In addition, as mentioned in the South Australian TEFL Framework Guide, any new resource would have to make genuine connections from the curriculum to learners' worlds and their future life and employment possibilities. In his book, Visible Learning, John Hattie found a medium effect size of 0.45 when technology was used to aid teacher instruction, but only a small effect size of 0.30 when the technology was used in an attempt to replace the teacher. Current research indicates teachers are resistant to implement new instructional technologies due to their unfamiliarity and unwillingness to change from familiar strategies. This lack of uptake is a major impediment to meaningful pedagogical change in the classroom. The key to student success seems to be the depth of professional learning for teachers prior to the introduction of new technologies. The new resource would have to be very user-friendly and intuitive to use to ensure the uptake by staff. Building on feedback from previous studies would mean finding a platform with the ability for staff to customize teaching materials or teaching sequences according to individual student needs and particular pedagogical situations. Whilst as the Learning Area Coordinator, I control and submit the budget for the department, at the end of the day I must be able to justify the expenditure to the principal. This must be looked at in terms of a cost-benefit analysis, with the produced outcome being measurable growth in student learning and achievement. Henley High School has a community of extremely active and involved parents. The selected resource would need to be explained and its use justified to parents and caregivers. Enter style. As the science coordinator, I was often approached by salespeople, each peddling the new and improved educational resource from their company. Style caught my eye as it was produced in conjunction with Cosmos Scientific Magazine. Cosmos is produced by the Royal Institution of Australia Incorporated, RIAUS, a science communications organisation based in Adelaide, Australia. Style Education, work in collaboration with Cosmos, to deliver science lessons to high schools around the world. Lessons bring the relevance of science to students because they are based on stories recently published in Cosmos magazine. Their lessons are developed with teachers to be interactive and mapped to the Australian curriculum. Style professed to be able to empower students to observe, think, write, and argue like real scientists and engineers. It aimed to build learners' capacity to think critically and creatively, which aligned well with the Australian curriculum's general capabilities. It also met the need of trying to best prepare the students for their future, with a focus on valuable non-cognitive skills. I approached Style and arranged for a free trial for the remainder of the school year in order to establish if it would be a viable alternative to the expiring Macmillan e-text licenses. And so the free trial of Style commenced. To facilitate this process, I used one of our science team meetings to introduce the platform and what it was capable of to the staff. The response was very positive, with 6 staff quickly offering to be part of the trial and several more who would consider it. As a result, I sent login invitations to all 28 of my staff members. To begin with, the 6 trial teachers would trial the platform with their own science classes, which spanned years 8, 9 and 10. The team at Style sent me through stylish stats each week to monitor the process from a data perspective. This is a snapshot of the stats around a month into the trial. Even by this early stage, there was already an increase in the number of staff that were wanting to trial the new resource, as word of mouth had begun to spread. I received an email from Style with our monthly usage report for August, only the 2nd month of the trial. We were up to 12 active teachers. The most striking part of the information for me was the total pieces of student feedback left. In only 2 months, our students had received an additional 726 pieces of valuable feedback from their teachers. The cliched phrase, "failure is necessary for growth," has been confirmed by cognitive psychologists and neurologists. Students need to be regularly updated on their performance. The more time that elapses between the performance and the feedback, the less likely it will have an impact on future performances. By the end of the year, the results were quite staggering, and the path forward was evidently clear. Almost a third of the entire student population of the school were using the platform in the trial phase, not to mention almost the entirety of our science staff. Combined with inordinate amount of positive anecdotal feedback I was receiving from both students and staff, the data proved to make the decision a very easy one. I was then able to negotiate with Style Education to ensure our ongoing use of this incredible resource. Due to this negotiation, I was able to secure the platform for half of the regular price per student. Not only was this far more economically beneficial than renewing the current text licenses, it provided infinitely improved interactivity and learning capacity for the students. We started the 2017 school year after purchasing 700 student subscriptions for Style for our Year 8, 9 and 10 science students. We had a lot of staff in the science team who also taught mathematics, design and technology, or PE, or one that also taught languages and music. I began hearing from them that due to the customization Style enabled, they were having tremendous success using the platform for their other classes as well. Due to the fact that their students were already familiar with Style, having used it in their science classes, it was proving to be a very easy transition for them to use it across multiple subjects. Positive teacher feedback kept mounting, and I began to receive requests from other subject teachers for them to be able to use Style. I obliged and created accounts for any interested staff, even making appearances at other faculty staff meetings to run training sessions on the use of Style. By the end of the year, the number of students utilizing Style had grown once again, as had the number of staff. After a meeting with the principal, it was decided that I would negotiate with Style to roll out the platform school-wide the following year. Being predominantly a science resource, Style was very interested in this movement and gave us a further discount on yet another 300 student subscriptions, as they were keen to gauge the success of such a wide uptake of the resource. The benefits of the data was that it displayed clear trends in student and staff usage. The usage reports and associated statistical data provided great evidence to justify expenditure for annual budget submissions. Teachers are not often publicly acknowledged for their hard work and diligence behind the scenes. The stylish stats weekly emails provided an avenue for providing positive feedback to hardworking staff and were publicly published in our meeting agendas. They were also able to be used as evidence for staff performance reporting. The limitations of using pure data for decision making is that the personal connection facet is lacking. The data only reveals insights into usage, but does not reveal any information related to student learning and achievement or staff and student satisfaction information. In order to gain a full appreciation of the success or failure of the trial, statistical data needs to be supplemented with much more personal anecdotal feedback from staff and students. The first recommendation to improve the data collection and decision-making process would be to include additional student data. Whilst anecdotal feedback from students was collected in an informal manner, clear data from a formalised survey that captured their personal feedback to the trial would have greatly added to the analysis process. This would also have provided insight into their training and induction to the use of the resource in order to further improve this experience for other students in the future. Whilst anecdotal feedback was captured from staff about their experiences during the trial, this process was done informally, usually during personal conversations or during staff meetings. A second recommendation would be to formalise this process also, allowing more formal quantitative evidence to be collected for the decision-making process. Thirdly, staff were not given the opportunity to provide feedback after sessions that provided training on how to use and implement the STAR platform in their classes. If this had been collected, targeted adjustments could have been made for subsequent training sessions that allowed for more comprehensive and effective implementation of the resource.